The last video right before this one because I'm still talking about prosecution's first rebuttal witness, which was Dr. Avram Mack. Now, when Kevin Reddington went to cross-examine him, he blew it up a lot, frankly, because he tied him back to Park Dietz, which I'm going to talk more about in a minute. Wish to hell I'd never Googled that guy, and this is probably going to be a third video because now I can't shut up about him. But what Reddington did also to discredit Mack was a couple other things. So he talked about Mack's history, went through his CV, and a lot of the work that Mack has done has been on the pediatric side, right? He's talked about kids, teenagers, younger people, sometimes behavior disorders, drug treatments, those kinds of things. And so at one point, Kevin Reddington actually asks him, how long has it been since you've been within breathing distance of a pregnant woman? And it turns out he really hasn't handled any postpartum issues for about 25 years. Mack was talking about his history, and Reddington says, well, of all that time, about 25 years of practicing, how many women, postpartum women patients, not women in psychosis or suffering other things. These are just simply postpartum patients. How many in 25 years? And he says about 10. Reddington gave him shit for basically he's visited Lindsay twice, and it was 3 years after the death of the children. So a lot has changed compared to Dr. Zeisel or Sheila Kavanagh, people who've been with her from the very beginning and have continued seeing her over the course of 3 years. Got caught saying things like, well, Lindsay has suffered a lifetime of anxiety, had a lifetime distaste for taking medication. So he kept using the word lifetime, and Reddington kept busting him on that. Like, oh, did you go all the way back to primary school? Like, what what evidence do you have to say that? So he got blown up a lot. But in my opinion, the most controversial thing here is his alliance with Park Dietz and Associates. And the one that's testifying on Monday has this exact same connection. And if you go look at Park Dietz and you look at his 50 years of high profile cases, I can only find one example where Park Dietz ever found anyone insane. One. These men are paid to come in, and under every circumstance, they have to come up with another reason. This person was severely depressed. This person had a porn addiction. This person had this. They have to come up with every single other reason under the sun, because they will never, ever testify that this person might be insane and might not be criminally responsible for the crime that they committed. See, Dr. Resnick, who testified for the defense on Friday, Dr. Resnick has testified on both sides. In fact, I found a couple of high-profile cases. So yes, he did defend Andrea Yates, and he did defend Jeffrey Dahmer, and here he is defending Lindsay Clancy. In all cases, he says all of them were suffering from some sort of mental illness and should not be held responsible for their actions. But Resnick also, he was called in to assist prosecutors in the Timothy McVeigh case, and he consulted behind the scenes. He didn't testify, but he consulted behind the scenes and was able to advise them on McVeigh and Terry Nichols. They were perfectly capable of understanding what they did, and they should be punished for their crimes. He was also hired as a consultant, a defense consultant, for the Susan Smith case. She's a South Carolina mom who strapped her kids into their baby seats and rolled the car into a lake to drown them because she was involved in a relationship with a man who didn't want children. So this was that murder of convenience I talked about in the last video. Resnick was called in to consult for the defense. They wanted to do an insanity plea. And Resnick, after evaluating her, found she was not legally insane. She knew what she was doing, and she should be held accountable for her actions. And so they decided that he couldn't testify because he wouldn't get up there and say that she was insane for the sake of the defense. The reason I'm telling you this is because that's what a true expert should do. A true expert should look at the information and then decide either way. It might help the case, it might hurt the case, but either way, you should be non-biased when you look at these things. Park Dietz is a renowned psychiatrist, and he has testified in tons of different cases. Go to try and find out, has Dr. Park Dietz ever concluded that a defendant was legally insane? Like, ever? And yes, there's one. So in almost 50 years of work, only one time has he found a person legally insane, and it was this person, Deanna Laney. He surprised prosecutors in Texas by evaluating Deanna Laney, who bludgeoned her 2 children to death, believing she was acting under God's orders, and concluded that she was a textbook case of legal insanity. She was subsequently found not guilty by reason of insanity. One time. Andrea Yates, I'm going to talk about in a minute. He got Andrea Yates wrong. In fact, if you want my opinion, this motherfucker lied on the stand. That's why she got a retrial. I know it's going to be another video because I had a lot on this guy. He has testified in a number of really big cases, but here's the ones you've probably heard of. John Hinckley Jr., man who was arrested for trying to assassinate Ronald Reagan. Yates is brought in to analyze John Hinckley Jr. He finds him to be emotionally unstable, but understood what he was doing. He acknowledged that he had several personality disorders: narcissistic, schizoid, mixed personality disorder, persistent sadness. Dietz said that he did not lack the capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct. He said part of the reason was that Hinckley could tell him, when you asked about what he did that day, he could tell him step by step. I got up, I went and chose a restaurant for breakfast. Here's what I had for breakfast. Like he could tell you all the details of the day. Dietz said that made him very much in his right mind. After an 8-week trial, the jury disagreed. The jury found Hinckley not guilty by reason of insanity on all 13 counts. The verdict was such a shock that Senator Arlen Specter held a hearing of the Senate Judiciary Committee to question the jurors and the American Psychiatric Association and the American Bar Association. You to understand this. Congress got involved and questioned the jurors. Good old Arlen Specter did not believe that John Hinckley Jr. was insane when he tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan. Look, that trial catapulted Dietz into the national spotlight. Attorneys took special note of his unique knowledge of deviant behavior being the key words here. He constantly finds some other reason to explain away the crime because he doesn't want to admit that anybody is ever insane. That is his track record. This is why Kevin Reddington tore up Dr. Mack last week for his association with Park Dietz, and he mentioned the Law and Order Andrea Yates thing. But by God, I'm out of fucking time. So you got to come back to another video. I have so many more examples of bias, expert opinions from Park Dietz. Please come back. I'm so sorry. I talk a lot. Please come back.